You are Locked On Coogs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I want to remind you today's show is brought to you by the College Football Playoff on TNT. It's that time of year. Yeah, it's already that time of year. The College Football Playoff is back. The newly expanded 12-team format. It's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of the College Football Playoff begins December 21st, starting with the College Football Playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern. Leading to our first matchup, the SMU Mustangs are battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 o'clock Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the College Football Playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. Parker Rangers hosts a Locked On Coogs here, talking transfer portal and portal chatter these days. Looking at the linebacker position, a position we've outlined as being kind of thin at this point on the roster, especially with I think moving some guys around, getting some guys closer to the line of scrimmage. I think Brandon Mack could very realistically move to defensive end unless they bring in Justice, right? I think that means LaTrevion McCutcheon, the younger McCutcheon brother, ends up playing that dog position a lot more. I don't know what Zion Taylor plays. The thing is down on the line of scrimmage. Suddenly, you're returning Corey Platt from a bad injury a year ago, but it feels like you're losing a lot of the guys around him. I still love Maddox Merciless's speed. We talked about him earlier in the week because he was on campus visiting. Eastern Kentucky kid, transfer portal kid. Really impressed with his video. Has a bunch of P4 offers already in the transfer portal. I think Houston's got to keep pushing for that one. If they're looking elsewhere, if they want to add more linebackers. I looked at two that sounds like Houston's looking at pretty closely. The first is a kid named Troy Bowles. I'm going to try and say the word Troy over and over again with him because he's the son of Todd Bowles. And frankly, when you listen to them talk, because you look at these videos, at some point they'll be interviewing them or whatever, they sound a lot alike. But Troy Bowles is the Georgia linebacker. He was a bench Georgia linebacker last year as a redshirt freshman, class of 2022 kid, a high-end 4-star recruit. Now, he's technically from Florida, as in he went to high school in Florida because his dad was the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But with Coach Todd Bowles being the kind of guy that bounced around a lot, I mean, like Troy Bowles was born in Dallas. He went to elementary school in Philadelphia and New York City. Like these things kind of shift and change a lot for him in his life that might not quite be like the normal kid. And so while he is from Florida and went to Georgia and has ties to the East Coast, he was born in Texas. I don't know that it's like safe to say any place is like home in that way for him. And frankly, if he wanted to go back to his home state of Florida, if Tampa stinks, they might fire his dad and home could become Arizona for all I know, right? Like those things can shift around. I don't think that that's going to be a big factor here for him. But where his dad being Todd Bowles does play a big role for him, I think, is that he knows good coaching, that's been around good coaching his whole life, right? Todd Bowles is very accomplished. He still needs a Super Bowl ring. I guess he was on staff when they won it with Brady, but he still needs a Super Bowl ring as a head coach, right? I say all that to say that I could see the Willie Fritz factor here being important, right? They just got Austin Armstrong, the wonderkind guy we're talking about, right, as a defense coordinator. I could see that being important. I could also see, if I'm being really frank, a place where he felt confident he could come in and play being important. He was redshirted and then played very sparingly in his 2 years thus far at Georgia. A lot of people assumed he got redshirted his freshman year. Didn't even get to play special teams because he didn't show up until June. He finished out of senior high school, which is normal, I think, for a lot of recruits, but Georgia really likes most of their guys to be done with high school by December. And so he, I think, is looking for that fresh start, right? Now, I understand that he's in the SEC currently, but Houston did just pull a defensive coordinator out of the SEC. Offensive coordinator was also in the SEC a year ago. I think Houston's got ties to showing that out. It does sound like they're fairly involved in the recruiting process. We'll see where Troy ends up. But keep an eye on the name Troy Bowles. I did that whole thing without calling him Todd once. Victory for Ainsworth. The other guy I'm looking at is Cayman Spaulding. He got an offer from Houston early, it sounds like, in the transfer portal process, or at least interest, I should say. I don't know when the offer would have come in. He's a Tennessee Tech linebacker that, frankly, when you watch one video, looks like you got to be playing somewhere a lot higher level than Tennessee Tech. And I don't mean that super pejoratively or negatively, but he just sticks out. Played over 600 snaps last year and missed just 6 tackles. Pretty sure tackler. Now, he played Mike linebacker. I should stress, I think Mike linebacker is actually the position we've got at least the starter filled in at with Corey Platt, but I could also see how if you come in, you want to play behind Platt for a year and then get the job yourself afterwards. Guy's got 2 years of eligibility left, so I could see that being a perk for him. You also know that Platt's had a major injury a year ago, and you could roll the dice and maybe I could play this year, right? I know I could play next year. We'll see, right? At the level he played out at Tennessee Tech, again, smaller schools, smaller budget schools, etc., was really good in coverage as a Mike linebacker. I don't know if that translates to being a good will linebacker, which covers a lot more in space, a lot more times you match up on a slot or something like that. Especially if they're going to do what they did at Florida last year with these guys they brought into Houston. And I say that to say that I don't necessarily know where the positional fit is, but I know that there's been interest shown and that this guy is a really, really good football player. And at the end of the day, it might be worth it to just have 11 really, really good football players on the field sometime, right? Like, don't overthink this. He's good at football. There's mutual interest. Do it, right? Just let that play out. There's a game online. The whole game, I think it's the Tennessee State game. Tennessee State has an active athletic quarterback. And again, Cayman Spaulding played the Mike linebacker in that game. I thought he did a pretty good job of tracking and spying the quarterback in that, frankly, that's not easy for any linebacker to do, regardless of level. And so he's got good speed. I don't know how the speed translates to being a power 4 will linebacker. The staff might think it does. The staff might think he does something else for Houston. I don't know. But the staff is interested, and I think that that's a guy to keep an eye on as I understand it. Now, there's lots of linebackers out there in the transfer portal. There's lots of other things in the transfer portal. Houston did a great job of hitting the gates or coming out the gates running, getting Connor Wegman and then some offensive linemen. I don't know that they're necessarily even done with the offensive lineman side, offensive lineman or the offensive side of the football. But I do know now that we have Austin Armstrong on campus, we're kind of shifting gears back to focusing on the defense. Now we have a defensive coordinator we can introduce them to as they're walking the facilities, right? And so I'd imagine with this weekend series of visits, you're going to see a lot of defensive guys that are either just visited or are visiting start to commit. I'd imagine the next wave is heavy on defense with maybe 1 or 2 offensive linemen as well. I don't know how many more receivers you're going to see. I don't know. I think I heard someone say they're going to talk to this one running back might come in this weekend, but the skill positions in offense are kind of solidifying themselves now on the defense side of the football, and really that front 7 especially. Not say they don't get another corner or something like that. You can never have too many corners. But I think that the front 7 is the focus of the weekend. So stay tuned for more on that. If you want to talk to me on X, or I still call it Twitter a lot of the time, but wherever you can find me, I'm at Painsworth512. Instagram also got a Painsworth Sports, Blue Sky Painsworth512, TikTok Painsworth512. Big time signings will get a short or something quick out. We'll be talking with them each and every day here at Locked on Coogs. So hit subscribe and hit the bell so you know we're live. Locked on Coogs, the primary of the Locked On Podcast Network. That means your team every day. Go Coogs.